Are you interested in innovative education and diversity in school models? Do you see a need for something different to bring about a reformation in our current education system? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join us as we discuss what's trending with unconventional learning models, including microschools, homeschool co-ops, creative learning centers, hybrid school models, and so much more. I am your host, Dalena Wallace, president and founder of Wichita Innovative Schools and Educators, also known as WISE. This podcast, Wise and Otherwise, explores what our local hub of education entrepreneurs are doing in Wichita. We will also explore and offer brief introductions to the many local and national organizations that support innovation in education. Welcome to Wise and Otherwise.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again for another episode of Wise and Otherwise. My name is Emmy McCabe, and I'm here with our president, Dalena Wallace. And today we're going to turn the tables a little bit, and I just feel like it would be wonderful for us to hear Dalena's story. So I will be interviewing her today. Hello, Dalena. How are you?
Hi, Emmy. Good. This is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Just put me here in the hot seat for a minute.
No, this is so great because I've had so many questions I've been wanting to ask you, but I feel like between all the board meetings and the planning, there's just hasn't been any time. But even just for myself, I feel like, the little bits that I know about your story has been so inspiring and just wonderful. So I'm excited. So yeah, let's see. I know that you started out actually as a homeschool mom, you still are a homeschool mom. And I've just been really curious as someone who came from a public school system and just really gradually learning more about the homeschooling community and learning to love it and just the benefits of homeschooling. I just wanted to see what your journey was like, because I know in the past we have talked that you have gone to public school. And so what made you decide to get into homeschooling and to homeschool your kids?
Yeah. So my story, it's really probably unique. It's probably not the same reason that a lot of people start homeschooling. I became pretty convinced that I needed to homeschool. I felt kind of called to it, if you will, like before I was even pregnant with my oldest right now. So when my husband and I first started our family, we were blessed to get pregnant, and then we actually lost our first baby. So this is like, it was a very personal journey for me as far as a parent, as far as just being a mom. And I felt like I was pretty devastated, obviously, but I just remember surrendering this whole idea of what I thought it might look like to be a parent someday. And to be honest, what I thought of as an ideal situation would be like, okay, maybe I can send my kids to a private school and I can be like the mom that goes for the fun field trips and goes to the class parties and just kind of gets to show up and be supportive. But I never saw myself teaching my own kids. I didn't really think that that was something that I was going to do. But then, just part of this personal journey, I lost this baby. And I just remember kind of coming to this place of surrender, thinking, if I can ever be a mom, I'm going to completely just surrender my idea of what I thought it was going to be like. And I just remember really it was pleading with God for just, please give me this gift of children. Please bless me with a family. And I just remember really feeling impressed that I would do it his way. I would do whatever God asked me to do for my family. And little by little, I started meeting people who were homeschooling. And I had never in my life met people who were homeschooling before this. And so it was really interesting. I wasn't pregnant. We miscarried that baby. And so I just remember going through this journey and just really all of a sudden finding one person, then another person, and they would homeschool and this person homeschooled. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Why am I meeting people who are homeschooling now? And then just remembering that I had kind of given up this idea of what I was going to be, like what type of parent I was going to be, and feeling like really impressed that if I ever had my own children, I was going to homeschool them. And I didn't yet even know what that meant. But I started to feel like that's the direction that I would go. I got pregnant and I was like, I'm doing this and I really wanted to. There was just something like a desire that I had to spend my time with my children because I really saw them as a blessing. I saw them as this gift from God, and I wanted to be a good steward of that. And I didn't want to just say, okay, well, I had my first 4 years with my children at home, and now I'm ready to kind of send them elsewhere and have someone else teach them. So, I mean, when people ask me about this, if I'm really honest, that is the motivation. That's what happened in my life. It was like, okay, I thought I was going to do things differently, but you know how life is, and you can never really predict what's coming your way. And so I was very open-handed when it came to being a parent and being a mom, as far as I have this, and this all laid out as a plan. And I kind of went back to this blank slate, like a total white canvas, and just really between me and the Lord saying, okay, I surrender this to you. If you help and you bless me with children, I'll do it however you want me to do it. And it felt like he wanted me to homeschool.
That is
So,
such a beautiful story. Wow.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's probably not what most people expect. It's not like, I never did it as a reaction toward, trying to pull my kids out of public school or the influence of the world or things like that. It wasn't about that. It was just that I felt very blessed to have my kids, very, very blessed, and wanted to spend as much time as I could and truly invest in them. We have very strong faith values and family values that I really wanted to invest in and pour our time and energy into to spending all those teachable moments with my kids day and night. And so that's kind of how we got into it.
And now you're a mom of six.
Yes. And then just one baby after another. It's like, oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Okay.
Like God
Wow. Here
really
we go.
answered.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. It's just, and it actually reminds me of, because I got into the homeschooling thing too, just helping my sister during the pandemic, and she was really afraid. I know, but
Mhm.
like I had just left the classroom as a teacher, so I was helping her and just kind of journeying with her through it also.
Yeah.
And she just really pointed out, when she when the kids when they all decided for their family, because they have like 8 kids, to send the older ones back to school, or a couple of them requested because they want to see their friends, um that she was just what's the word, lamenting about how long they were in school for,
Yeah.
and that homeschooling is really just very family centered, and you get to
Mhm.
build those rituals and traditions together, and you get to be friends and just really
Right.
appreciate the kids and be present to them. And she talks about missing them and seeing them play
Mhm.
together, just the relationships they develop with each other. So I
Yeah.
definitely see that as one of the biggest benefits. So
It's a very special thing for sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, yeah. So you started out as a homeschool mom, and I have like my list here of like the 10 different levels. Because you're also
Oh my
president of
goodness.
WISE, but I can't wait to share with the listeners
Mhm.
and viewers as well, like what else you do. So after homeschooling, you actually decided to expand a little bit, like
Mhm.
from just having your family to other people's families. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, and again, it's a personal journey. It was like that came out of necessity for me as being a mom of six. My husband travels some with work, and I remember being at this stage where I had like a third grader, a second grader, and a first grader. And that's funny because those were my bigs at the time, they were
Yeah, yeah.
my older kids, and now they're like sophomores and freshmen and seventh grade or eighth grade. And so So at the time, I had my oldest kids were like third grade, second grade, and first grade. So I'm trying to homeschool them, but I also have like the preschooler, the toddler, and the baby. And I'm like trying to do the homeschool thing. My husband was traveling out of town a bit, and I decided to invite a friend to come over and to homeschool with me together, like one day a week. And so I actually called that day, it used to be my weepy Wednesday because it was the middle of the week and I still had a long ways to go. Like it felt like a long ways to go. Like I
Yeah.
got through Monday and Tuesday, but Wednesday it would just hit me like, oh my goodness, here we go. Just try to get there and try to do the thing. And it finally dawned on me because my friend was, just feeling kind of lonely. She was homeschooling, and, we live in these rural parts of Kansas. She's in her own little small town, and I'm in my own small town, but we're just 10 minutes apart. And I said, why don't you just come over on Wednesdays? Let's teach our kids together, and the kids can learn together, and we'll share the subjects. We did that, and we still to this day have not stopped. And so we started, I want to say that was 2016. And now it's 2023. And so in one form or another, she and I, this is Devin, my friend who now currently has a microschool in her home. And my three youngest kids go to her microschool one day a week. They're no longer coming to my house. And they're going to her house, and it's wonderful. But like through that journey, we started out just she and I doing this together with our combined kids. We had 8 total then, and then our friend Larissa, we invited her, and she kind of heard about what we were doing and said, hey, can I come? Like I can teach geography, or I'll teach this. At the time we were actually doing Latin, which now I'm
Cool
like,
for third graders.
right. So we
The,
don't
the,
do that anymore. Like, I mean, there's some amazing, yeah, amazing classical educators out there into that and doing that. But like we let that just go by the wayside and said, let's focus on our basic English language right now. If we can do that, we're great.
it's
Um,
her family. That's another beautiful thing about it. So,
Right,
yeah.
exactly. So we were in my home for a couple of years, and then we decided to expand that a little bit because other people were learning about what we were doing and wanted to be involved. We needed a bigger space. I was like, well, I can't really have more than 10 kids in my home. So our church owned a school building that was vacant, and most of the week they didn't use it except for just a kids' church in the evenings. And so they let us use their facility. And then all of a sudden we kind of grew to 12 families. We
Wow.
had 12 moms coming together one day a week and sharing the workload. So that became this co-op. It's called Apollo's Scole Community. I was the director of that for 5 years. I'm no longer the director of that. So as I start things and build things and help them grow and become established, it's just kind of this pattern right now with me. I'm just being like totally honest about things,
Yeah.
but I don't know, for good or bad. It's like I feel like once something is up and running and established, and if others see the value in it and they want to take ownership of that as well and say, okay, thank you for helping us get started and organize. Thank you for the leadership and the direction here and bringing on some structure. But I am more than happy to say, okay, like you go ahead and take the reins. Like, because I always have something next. I always have something else that I want to do, and more families I want to serve or have a larger impact. But to be honest, that's not always, it's kind of a difficult transition. It doesn't always feel right, to be honest. So I'm a big picture person. I have big dreams and visions, and um, I just want to be really cautious about what I do and what I take on, because when I start something that's truly beautiful and working really well, a lot of people would say, well, why will you change that? Or why wouldn't you just stay with what you're doing for the rest of your days or whatever? And I'm like, oh, because there's more families that I
Mm.
feel like could benefit from this model and could benefit from this. And so it's been such a blessing for my children and such a blessing for my family. And then the little circle of families, when it was the three of us and then the 12 of us. So I've always just kind of have this desire to share that with other people. And so for the past 2 years, we've expanded our day rather than just making it our co-op to serve our 12 families. I've really presented with our group and said, listen, ladies, I love this, but I really want to do more and serve these other families that aren't a part of the group. And so we've extended the days, and that's when we've started hiring community leaders and teachers from the community to come in. And it's open to everybody, any homeschooler in the area that
Very
wants to come
cool.
and participate. Then now I'm just organizing these classes where these teachers come and the students come, and I'm just connecting them. But it's had a further reach. Like now we have like some days 60 to 80 students in the school, at a time. So that's one thing. Um, and then I'll let you ask me some more questions because I feel like I've just been rambling on and on.
No, that's great. Like, oh my gosh, it's just grown. And what I see from it is just, it's so organic. But I think it's just like you have this heart for service and you just know and see that it's something the community needs and they
Mhm.
just come, right?
Mhm.
It grows and it doesn't, it just feels so natural, I
Mhm.
guess. And I think you starting and being able to leave is like a testament for how much of a need it was really in the community, and because it can sustain itself, it doesn't
Yeah.
need you to
Mhm.
maintain it. So that's just really wonderful lesson like of you being able to find those needs and grow organically. So I know you started with a homeschool and then it's a micro school and then the homeschool co-op and then community classes for like the whole like
Right.
Hutchinson Partridge area. And now you're a level up and you're our president and for Wise. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that happened again organically and naturally as um, let's see. So during the pandemic, our church that I talked about that owned one school building actually purchased another school building in our town because the old one was really dilapidated and old. And this all happened at the same time. So the small elementary school in our town of Partridge shut down. I think it was in 2018 was the last year. So they closed their doors in 2018, and it was really sad to see. It really impacted our community because that was a small community school, and the teachers were from the area, and people knew the families. The parents were really involved. There were only 54 students enrolled in this elementary school at the time. And so it was sad when they decided to shut down, and it was concerning to me. And so it's just, I don't know why I feel compelled to get involved in things like this, but I do. I definitely feel drawn to help shape what's happening in education because it matters to me. It matters that families have good quality options. Not everybody can homeschool or wants to homeschool. So we need to have good quality options. So when that public school shut down, um, I started to actually look into things like starting a charter school. What can we do? How can we serve these families that were now all of a sudden having to bus their kids for a couple of hours both ways? Like, they would get on the bus for an hour and a half in the morning, an hour and a half in the afternoon. even kindergartners. And this was a trend. This wasn't just like a one-off deal. It was like I can drive around about 20 minutes around my home, like a radius, and find 8 schools that have been shut down in these small towns.
Oh
So
my
I
God.
can just list off like the town, like Arlington, Turon, Abbeville, Plevna, Partridge, Sylvia, Pleasant View, all of these little towns that are just 20 minutes around me have these vacant, shut down community schools.
Oh
And I'm
no.
thinking, what is happening? Why is this happening? This just doesn't seem right. They're shipping these kids, and then I'm driving from Colorado to Kansas. We go on ski trips and things and come home, and I'm driving through Garden Plain and see this massive school with thousands of students that attend this school. And it's just this big brick for blocks and blocks, this big brick, massive school. And I'm thinking, that cannot be the answer. That just cannot be the answer. And so feeling for families and feeling for like, what can we do to serve them and offer things? So I started exploring things with microschools. And I realized like, I'm already doing that. I've been doing this in my home. If more people could do something similar, and just offer small schools. So I feel like I'm really rambling.
No,
but
this is okay. Like, it's so great to just hear the story and what inspired you to start doing the things that you do, because
Mhm.
you do so much, right? Like, and here you're talking about whys. I also remember, like, oh my gosh, you also have AIM Educational Collaborative,
Yeah.
which is, I
And
think,
that did come first. So that's kind of where I was going, this roundabout thing. As I was looking for people who were doing similar things to what I'm doing here in Partridge, I realized I'm going to have to go a little bit further. I have to get out of Partridge to connect with some people doing something like this. So I went to Wichita. I started connecting. I was invited to speak actually at this event. My sister-in-law was hosting it at her church, and it was for their congregation in the community, and it was called an alternative education exploration night. And it
mm,
was 2020. It was the year that, shutdowns happened and families were like looking for options. They wanted to know, okay, we might not ever go back or send our kids back to their public school or even their private traditional like brick and mortar school. They were like, we want to look at what our options are. So I was invited to speak at that. And that's when I met Katie Size from Green Gate. And I
mhm,
also met Candace Fish from Freedom Prep. And then we started talking and connecting, and I went to go visit Katie's school. I was very inspired. And just as like an offhanded remark, she was just telling me about this grant she got. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. She's like, oh, you should apply for it. And she was talking about the Vela Education Fund.
mhm.
And I was like, what? I'm not doing anything. Like, what am I doing? And again, I still just kind of felt like I'm a homeschool mom. I'm serving my kids' needs and my community. Well, apparently that's something. so
Yes. Yes.
I did apply for the Vela Education Fund, but Katie encouraged me like to pick a name for what I
Mhm.
was doing. I didn't have a name. I didn't have a business. I was just serving families. And so I thought, well, what is it that I do? And I like to encourage people to start microschools or co-ops or small schools or whatever it's going to be, offering tutoring services, open their home, homeschool their kids plus some more. All
Mhm.
these things, like I feel like I'm very passionate about this because I feel like it's going to meet the needs for families. Um, and so I named my business. I had to pick a name, and I named it AIM, Educational Collaborative. And AIM stands for autonomous, innovative, and missional, because I believe that individuals can start their own learning environment, their own educational service or school, and it can be autonomous. It doesn't have to be connected to this big chain. It doesn't have to be centralized. It doesn't have to be branded. It can be your own thing. It can be
Mhm.
innovative, completely different, completely outside of the box. Like dream it, however you dream it, however you envision this learning experience needs to be for your kids, then you create it and design that. And then missional, what is it that you personally as an educator want to want to offer?
Hmm.
What service? What's like the niche market or reason why you want to teach? And then the educational collaborative part is just because I believe in community. I believe that we need to be together and connect with others. And so I love to collaborate. I've hosted things here in Reno County that's bringing homeschool families together along with the educators that offer services, the library, the sports teams, the speech and debate, bringing them together, even with legislators like, okay, guys, let's get in the same room and let's see how we work together in a community to educate our kids. So,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
that's great. I was gonna say, like, you just know so many people. And that was the thing I was just gonna ask, like, how do you meet people? Like, especially the ones, like you said, for example, James Franco, president of
Mhm.
KPI, and just like, yeah, does it just kind of happen naturally, or give us
I
some networking tips?
I don't, again, I'm not sure why I've made this my business, like not just my business, like AIM Educational Collaborative, but I've made this my business to be informed about education and what's happening, not just what's trending. Like I'm really actually kind of disengaged from like what's trending in public schools or whatever. That's not really my realm. It's like who's doing something creative and who's supporting that. So I have this like radar that connects when I hear somebody who I feel like has some influence or has some vested interest in innovative education, whether it's policymakers or the like funders, those who are thinking like parents who are looking for options. Like I just have this radar that goes off if I hear someone talking about something or I I just think I should meet them. So really that's what it is. I don't know a bunch of people. I go and meet them. I'm like, I should call this person up. I should just see. I want to learn more about what they're doing. I want to tell them what I'm doing. I want to see if we can meet for coffee and then tell them about what other people are doing. And then when I meet these other people, I'm like, oh, have you ever met so and so down there? Because he was just talking about this very thing. And I feel like it's important for the movement to grow that there's a lot of synergy and connection between these different organizations and individuals. I feel like when we get everybody together around the same table and we have these conversations, we can really get a big picture like, wow, look at what's happening. Look at how many people are interested in this and working towards this because we want to see change. We want to see a lot of options and a healthy landscape when it comes to education.
That's great. And I think that's really beautiful that, what drives you is just looking for the innovation and just really expanding options for families rather than purely avoiding pain or having some
Yeah.
sort of trauma from public
Yeah.
school, which I think is also very legitimate, but it's nice. And I think even with WISE, we've always said it's not supposed to be competitive, but
Mhm.
collaborative, right?
Yeah.
With the AIM education. So that's really great. And I just see like you're very driven by your curiosity and just a real heart for the movement. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of people sometimes maybe I know for me as someone who is more introverted, I hesitate just like putting myself out there, introducing
Mhm.
myself to people because it's like, I mean, first is the energy thing, but also like the whole, but what am I doing? Like I think what you said
Right.
at first, like, oh, I'm just a homeschool mom, or oh, I'm just a
Yeah.
teacher, and
Mhm.
having this thought of I'm just this, which we talked
Right.
about in the first episode.
Mhm.
When you start thinking of yourself in a certain role, you expand more and do
Right.
more things. But I think here I just see your drive is really service and connection. and the community. And this is just really beautiful. And it's really great. And I mean, like, even me, I've benefited from that, just with your encouragement and helping me really focus on what I want to do with Loretta Learning. That's been
Mhm.
really great. So
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah.
Of course, I do try to like look for opportunities to encourage people who are doing something that's really valuable that they might not hear it enough. I feel like teaching in general is a thankless job. Sometimes being a mom is a thankless
Uh,
job. Those who start schools and are serving families and interacting with kids a lot, that we don't always get our peers telling us that we're doing something good and valuable and important. We're not always getting that encouragement. And so, I mean, from doing that, sometimes it feels like it can be a draining thing. It's not always, it's not always like this rewarding thing. Now, if you have this intrinsic motivation for why you're doing what you're doing, it's very rewarding. But then as far as getting that affirmation from others, it doesn't always come. And so, I recognize the importance of that and showing that camaraderie and having that support from your peers. I also think it's so important to not have that competition and not try to tear each other down and what they're doing and say, well, my way is better than others, or my school is best, or my co-op is best, or whatever. That's nonsense. Like, families have to have lots of options that might work really, really well for some families that wouldn't work for others. So I think just that being able to share that idea with the group from the beginning, and that's really just kind of a core principle of our group that has been instilled early on and natural. And I think everyone's been so receptive. It's so refreshing. Like, yes, please, can we be in a community like that? Yes.
Yes. Yes. It's great. It's different. Like, I love that it is more like the business model, where I feel like in the public school system, sometimes like choice is crushed, but then
Mhm.
here, when we have the micro schools, it's really like open market, like where
Oh,
families get to choose and like
right.
gets to choose what fits them best, just like
Right.
in a like businesses. But
Hmm.
unlike your typical business, it's not like you're competing. Instead,
Hmm.
you're building community, and we each recognize, like, yeah, this family might not be the best fit for my school or my
Yeah.
business. Who can I send them to that seems like a better fit? And in that way, I feel like we're serving the community so much more, rather than
Hmm.
just saying, oh, we're not a good fit,
Yeah.
or trying to make everybody fit that might not be a good fit.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, I just love that about our community, and that there's
Mhm.
just people from all over. And I think it helps us just appreciate each other's talents and see where we complement one another and grow. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then what's next for you? How did you have, like, I feel like it went from home to like
Uh-huh.
friends and like your
Mhm.
neighborhood and your community to like the city of Wichita, maybe the state of
Yes.
Kansas.
Yes.
No,
Yes,
global.
exactly. I just, and things honestly do fall into place naturally too. Like, I feel like there's a lot of, um, I don't know, just opportunity that comes, um, naturally, and it has been effortless to expand. It's been effortless. It's not something that I have like worked really hard to make this happen or to make that happen or to start something different. It's like there's this momentum, there's this energy of this movement, and coupled with like my passion for this, for innovative education, then these opportunities and open doors. I'm like definitely someone who can recognize like good timing, good connections, when it's time to act on something, because I feel like there's more potential to bless more families if I go this direction. So going back to like what I said about like when you're leaving something behind, like my role as the director of the co-op and my role as the one who has the microschool in my home. And now it's not me, but my friend who has the microschool in her
Mhm.
home. That's a lot of transition and a lot of change, but I also just feel like I'm walking in the steps, like the path that's like laid out before me, that it continues to move forward and it continues to expand. And I have kind of this picture in my mind and have had it for several years. And now I feel like it's starting to make sense to me. But I remember when I was moving, so I lived in Wichita for a few years, for
Mhm.
3 years, when my husband and I first moved to Kansas. And I remember that I was moving out to Partridge. And I'm like, Partridge, Kansas? Oh my goodness. So I have grown up living in some big cities. Like I have
Mhm.
lived in Orlando, Florida, and Denver, the metropolitan area. I've lived in Orange County, California. So I have lived in these big places. And then, I meet this man from Kansas and we're moving to Kansas. And not only that, we're moving not in Wichita, we're moving to Partridge, Kansas. Okay. So talk about life just throwing you some curveballs and having this blank slate and just being very open-handed. Like, I am a Christian. I do believe that God has like a purpose for each individual, that He has created everybody for a specific purpose and a calling. And I know that's not everybody's thing, but for me it does make sense. It does seem to be like this is what's happening. I remember when I was moving out to Partridge, I'm like, well, what on earth? And I kind of got this picture of this little red like drop pin, on a map, and
Huh.
it went to Partridge. But then I saw like these little arrows kind of shooting out a little bit, like kind of
Mhm.
expanding. Didn't make sense to me. So this was, I don't know, 12 years ago or something.
Yeah.
Didn't make sense to me, but I was like open to it. But I'm like thinking back over the past few years of like how, just coming to this community, having my home, my family, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and the growth, I see this expanding. And I'm all about like if God created me for a certain reason, I want to follow his path
Mhm.
and his direction. And if this is what he's called me to, I'm here for it. Like I'm ready. I do want to be of service to other people. I do want to be a blessing. And so going towards Wichita, now expanding to more of Kansas, I'm connecting with these groups up in the Kansas City area, helping them form their own networks similar to
Mhm.
WISE, helping them to build communities and support each other, connecting with people in Manhattan, Kansas, helping to host that Heartland Summit
Nice.
with Kansas Policy Institute. And so I do feel this expansion. I do feel like the impact that I can have personally, if I can be used to help this grow and to help families have more options, I'm here for it. Like I'm just following when there's opportunities. I'm just stepping in that. So that's kind of, yeah, I am going a direction towards serving Kansas, in the immediate state of Kansas on a broader sense than what I've done. And then even the heartland, I just keep going back to that term heartland. It
Mhm.
was James Franco who chose that when we were naming our summit. And I'm like, I really like that. That just like resonated with me. And I feel like I could probably have a reach that is a little bit more like regional, that is right there. And it means a lot to me because I feel like anything that's happening in America, why wouldn't it start in the heartland? Why
Mhm.
wouldn't it, like everything that's meaningful comes from the heart,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So what I'm doing and like my motivation and being a part of this movement, it all has started with the heart, my heart. And then in America, if this movement can start from the heart and the heartland and grow from there, that seems a lot more genuine, like a grassroots thing, that's coming bottom up, community driven, rather than these people on the fringes who think they want to.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding. Anybody else, anybody can start things too,
Well,
but
it was just funny because I remember the podcast you recorded with Becky, it's like the fringe is
Oh,
becoming
yeah,
the
right.
main. So, but like the people have thought, Becky's always saying like this model that we have that we're working on has been around for so long, forever. And it's true, right? It's like fringe
Yeah.
now because it's not like your typical, brick and mortar public school or
Mhm.
like brick and mortar private school, but it's it's true, like you think about how they educated in the ancient world.
Mhm.
It's a lot of just like these little learning pods or homeschool, a lot
Yeah.
of our presidents are homeschooled, etc. So
Mhm.
it's more of like the public school that's newer. So
Yeah. So to answer your question again, though, as far as what's next, I have
Mhm.
been feeling like I want to go to churches. I feel like there's a huge opportunity and a lot of potential for churches to meet the needs of their community and their congregation by serving them by offering either they offer a small school themselves or they support one of these other faith-based schools in their area or they help by providing scholarships so that their students can attend one of these schools. And I feel like there's going to be like this revolution that comes or reformation actually. I have something in mind. So I have this project that I'm planning to start in. And I keep thinking like Heartland Education Reformation.
Mm.
That's really what I'm thinking is that this movement is going to continue to grow. And right now, churches haven't quite stepped up the
Mhm.
way that they can to meet this need. And I feel like if I can go cast this vision, like, hey, have you ever considered serving your congregation in this way or your community in this way? They're already so missional, they're mission minded, they're outreach minded. Most of them have a facility. Well, they do. They have a facility that they
Right.
meet in. So I'm just feeling like that's going to be the next direction for me, that I'm going to be putting some energy into that. And I'm really excited about it because again, that's personal and um yeah, I'm very motivated to see this grow and to see these great options for families.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think churches, that's great because like you said, they already have their community there. And I think probably the biggest hurdle is like they have no experience starting schools and don't know what that's like. So that's where you would come in and just show
Right.
them what's possible, just like how you have for many micro school founders
Mhm.
like myself, or, education entrepreneurs. So that's great. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, thank you. I covered so much that I did not plan on. I talked
That's
about things I
great.
had not expected to talk about, but I mean, again, getting to the heart of why I do what I do, I feel like just being really transparent with everything, like my origin story, my passion, what drives me, why I'm so motivated in this work. That's what that's what it's all about.
That's great. Yeah, I think that heart of service is very, um, what's the word? It's very obvious. Like it's very there. Okay, so to close us up, I was just wondering, do you have like any tips or one final advice for those people who want to try this, to just maybe start their own school, or even maybe not even necessarily start their school, but connect people the way you do? Like, what is an advice you can give them?
Well, I would say go ahead and start small. It doesn't have to be all mapped out and perfect. I know that that's, again, that's just more of a traditional view of how you would start a school. Like they would have maybe a 18-month plan before they launch, they'd be working towards this. But so many of our school founders in our group started like like that. They
Yeah.
resigned from teaching in a public school classroom or they were homeschooling and they're like, oh, I'm just going to open my home to more. And it can be such a small gradual thing, and you'll learn and you'll grow as you continue in that. So don't think you have to have it all figured out beforehand. Just move forward and take the baby step. And we're here, and there are a lot of people. We have a strong community that can support you. That's
Mhm.
what our resources are about. So we welcome anybody like that to come and learn with us together. I'm happy to share resources and connections. I think connections are very important. Community is very important to feel supported. So I would just say start, take the baby step, and don't feel like you have to have it all figured out. It'll come.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I think that fear of the unknown is such a big obstacle, but I think it's good to just think, start small. So thank you for that, Dalena. This has been so great. I learned so much and it's so inspiring. Thank you for sharing your story. And thank you to everyone who's joined us. We hope to see you all next time. Have a wonderful week.